Just played some rough matches with Marth against Crazy Colors Rosalina in Smash 4. My body is a fucking jittering mess. Time to do a commentary. Oh, I forgot to say click. Okay, one moment. Click. There we go. The status quo has been restored. Anyway, so, Chapter 5. So we're in Orleans now. It's been taken over by the Macedonians. We gotta kick their butt and save the princess. Because them princesses... Well, I mean, you know, that's kind of just what you do in a fantasy world. If there's not a princess needing to be saved, then you're not in a fantasy world. You're just in a... Okay, never mind. So yeah, this is the first indoor map. This is probably the first, like, truly interesting map in the game. Because it's the only one that feels, well, the only one so far that feels like it has, like, a genuine focus to it. So if you were listening to the overworld map shenanigans and this cutscene, the game's pretty much telling you, dude, the thieves are gonna take the chests, they're gonna run off with them, and you gotta stop them. So that's pretty much exactly what you gotta do in this chapter. All those thieves are gonna run to the chest, and then they're gonna head to the top right of the screen and leave through that stairway. Now, that stairway in particular is an important detail here, because, well, while I like this chapter in concept, the challenge kind of gets ruined if you just warp somebody over to the exit. But still, like, firstly, that costs a warp staff use, and you don't get a lot. And unlike FE11, you can't, like, restore the warp staff with the hammer staff. Oh, by the way, Ricard and the wizard guy, they auto-recruit themselves on the team. That's pretty convenient. So this guy's just kind of like, yeah, I was stealing, and I want to join the good guys now, because I was caught being a naughty boy. But yeah, like, in this chapter, I'm basically just gonna warp Doga over to that choke point over at the stairway at the top, and the thieves can't really do anything about that, and most of the enemies can't do anything about it either. I feel like if they wanted, they should have placed a couple, like, magic users near that stairway, so that way, like, if you warp somebody up there to block it, you gotta deal with those fuckers. And that would have made it a bit more interesting. Now, it's worth noting that warp staves are pretty ridiculous in this game, because as I said in the previous chapter, they can warp you to any spot on the map. So this is kind of a useful asset I'm using up that can't be regained. I think there might be another warp staff in this game, but I'm not sure. But yeah, like, there are a couple... Oh, here's Wendell, by the way. He's the dude who normally shows up in Chapter 4, but they removed him and placed him here for some reason. He will play a bit more important a role in Book 2, but for now he's just kind of like, yeah, I'm a dude. I use spells. I'm actually a pretty goddamn good unit. I won't be using them because, one, I got Merrick, who's already a really good unit with a super overpowered spell, the Excalibur, which looks like he's tossing batarangs at you, like just giant batarangs. So from now on, I'm gonna call Merrick Batman. And on top of that, I also have a healer. And even though Rena is statistically inferior to Wendell in pretty much every way, I'm gonna do it anyway because I'm a Fire Emblem traditionist, damn it. And screw playing well and all that shenanigans. So yeah, this part right here, I'll get back to the warp staff discussion in a bit, unless I have nothing else to add. This part's kind of tricky because you got those archers there, and I do believe you have a mage nearby. I made a kind of stupid mistake by moving some dudes, like too many dudes in that range. And well, actually, I think it was just Merrick that I was worried about. So I kind of had to block that choke point and hope that the people who are in the range of so many enemies just survive. Oh wait, not a lot of enemies. God damn it, Mark! I recorded this yesterday, so if I got stuff wrong, this is why. But yeah, like, getting to those thieves, if I didn't have the warp staff, getting to those thieves would actually be really difficult, because the enemies that are placed near that choke point are kind of set up in a way that getting near that choke point puts you in the range of just a bunch of dudes. So it's not that easy to... like, it's dangerous to move out of that spot quickly. You kind of gotta take your time. But again, since Doga up there is being a beast, being a trooper, we don't have to worry about any of that. You can pretty much consider all the items in this chapter obtained, because the thieves do not leave any chest unopened. So anyway, let's get back to the warp staff. It's only got 7 uses in this game, and I don't think you get another one. Correct me if I'm wrong. And there are certain situations where you're gonna really want to use it, particularly like with bullshit chapters that you want to skip, or like if you place a unit in a bad spot, you can use the warp staff to kind of save them. Not as much as the rescue staff, but I digress. Basically, where I was going with all this is that you don't want to use warp staffs too often. I just did it here to make things easier. Let's talk about the soldiers up there. Soldiers have a weirdly feminine anatomy in this game. Like, you're gonna see it pretty quickly here. But check this out. Oh, wait. A mage. Also, mages look kind of girly, too. Here we go. Like, look at the way he just, like, sassily walks up to Doga. And to complete the image, his legs are slightly exposed. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if those were women soldiers. What else? Something worth noting. Okay, so here's something I want to mention right now. I haven't really talked much about the preparation screen in the game. Firstly, it's kind of annoying to navigate, but on top of that, you can't, like, on the map screen, like the preparation screen, you can't exactly, like, change the positioning of your units when you start the chapter, like, their position on the map. You can't do it, I say that, but you can, but you just can't do it in a simple way. What you need to do is, the game automatically orders the units listed on the select screen based on which ones you selected last. So, if you selected only Navarre, exited the select screen, and then re-entered it, Navarre would be at the very front, like next to Marth. So you can use this to alter the positioning of your character's units on the map, but another problem is that the preparation screen doesn't show you where the units actually are until you start the chapter. So this is just a big pain in the ass, and most of the time you won't see me using it, but there are some situations where it kind of calls for it, because there are some chapters that demand, like, really precise positioning. Particularly in Book 2, there are a couple situations. Off the top of my head, there's one where you gotta recruit Ricard. Spoiler alert, he's back in the game in Book 2. And if I remember right, you pretty much have to do, like, some crazy rescue staff shenanigans, place Rena or whatever healer you get right in the front, and rescue warp Julian over so that he's close enough to move up to him and talk to him. It is so ridiculous, and you can't catch up to him any other way, as far as I'm concerned. It's just kind of ridiculous, you know? So near the end of this chapter, I decided to train Julian a bit, because Julian is surprisingly a good fighter. And it's mainly because he has so much speed that he can sort of just use steel swords and still double enemies. Though enemies in this game have kind of terrible speed. So let's see. Looking through the stuffs. Oh. Okay, so this is plainly obvious, but you might have noticed that our horsemen have to dismount when they're in castle maps. So this does two things, alright? forces them to use iron swords, well, forces them to use swords in general, and it also lowers their stats a little bit. That's something that the game doesn't really make clear, but if you dismount, the stats of your normally mounted unit decreases. Like, for example, Pegasus Riders normally have a very high resistance. Sheeta normally has 7 resistance in this playthrough because she got that extra point of res at the beginning of the game. But, since she's dismounted, if you look at her stats, she now has 1 resistance because she no longer has the Pegasus Riders, like, magic resistance benefit. It's pretty interesting, I'd say. And I do think that the dismount feature has some potential. Like, I feel that in the Game Boy Advance Fire Emblems, being able to take mounted units indoors is just ridiculous, because mounted units are already so good. FE5 does a pretty good job at making mounted units less ridiculous, but they're still ridiculous in that game, because that game, you have Finn, who has a Brave Lance that has high accuracy and hits twice and can kill most enemies in a single round of combat, and he's riding a horse, which allows him to capture basically any unit, no matter how big they are. Anyway, I think I've more or less run out of shit to say in this chapter. Most of it is at this point is just me trying to train up units. It's not really like you never really feel particularly punished for not training units in this game, because the enemies almost always have really terrible stats. So you could probably get through this entire game and not care one single bit about how you distribute your EXP. Just have people attack and there you go. Well, one thing though, you might want to stick to the units with the good base stats, because even though the enemies in this game are really easy to deal with most of the time, occasionally you'll come across a really overpowered one, or something else that's relatively difficult to deal with. So, thankfully there are a good number of units in this game with good bases, and some with astonishingly good growths, like Bart's. He's kind of ridiculous. Oh, check out this guy. Who the heck stutters like damn like that? Damn. Damn. Oh, you know what? That makes sense. Never mind. So yeah, Batman throws a couple batarangs. I hope for crits, because he's got a 30% crit rate, like, automatically from that thing. And I don't know what the heck I did to piss off the RNG goddess, but she just wasn't giving it to me. So anyway, Martha's taking advantage of his superior spacing and wave dash to get the JV5 stock. So I bring Sheeta over to give him some more power and shit. And check this out. He doesn't get the crit, except now. Like, come on. That is a lot of EXP though. That is nice. But I only get a steel lance. Like, come on. Previous boss gave me like an armor killer. Wait, no, you gave me a knight killer or a horse killer or whatever. Anyway, this is Nina of Akania. She's really goddamn hot in Shadow Dragon, but here she kind of just looks relatively boring. Though, it's worth noting that they prettied her up a bit more in New Mystery of the Emblem. Like, the CGs, she just looks really nice. Anyway, let's talk about something important. She's gonna give us the Fire Emblem. It's the symbol of the Akania royal family, and it's given to people who want to save the world. It also has the ability to open up any chest, aiding us in our heroic deeds by making it easier to rob people. Yeah, I don't know what the fuck they were thinking with that. Actually, come to think of it, when we get to Book 2, that might make a little bit more sense, but I won't spoil anything.